You're an interesting man, Scott Lang. You're an Avenger. You have a daughter. But you've lost a lot of time, like me.
Hey, it's Cass, your friendly internet tired writer here. I'm tired, I'm a writer, you get it. So, I'll be real, I was not that excited about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I always go into Marvel movies these days skeptical, especially after whatever this was.
A cast of actors that are either way too good for this film or way too shit for any film.
But I'm still invested in Marvel for some reason. Maybe it's because I spent a decade of my life watching every movie and every TV show and obsessing over the characters and who was going to die and who was going to live and who was going to save the day. Honestly, Marvel has consumed a lot of my life. So, my brother, dad, and I smuggled popcorn that cost a fraction of what my theater charges, and we took our seats. 2 hours and 5 minutes later, well, actually sooner than that because I was already thinking about this video before the movie even finished, I had some thoughts. So, Quantumania was kind of boring, which is weird because whether or not I think a Marvel movie is good or not, I can at least come out thoroughly entertained.
Are you not entertained?
Quantumania was entertaining in moments, but overall, it was honestly kind of boring. Definitely not as boring as Captain Marvel, but still one of the most boring Marvel movies I have ever seen. We all know that Marvel likes to shove comedy as much as they possibly can into their movies, much to the detriment of their movies because it causes so many tone issues and it lacks any drama and seriousness that movies often need to have any emotional weight. But honestly, Quantumania wasn't even that funny compared to most Marvel movies. I mean, you could argue that they were going for a more dramatic and serious tone, but it wasn't dramatic or serious enough for me to take it seriously as a drama. I mean, it's no Captain America Winter Soldier. I mean, the funniest part of the movie was a quantum blob guy who liked to joke about people's holes.
How many holes do you have?
He has 7 holes.
Yeah, that's right.
Just let me die! Let me die, please!
And that's ridiculous because it's an Ant-Man movie. They're supposed to be funny and lighthearted. I mean, Paul Rudd is hilarious and they didn't even utilize that. I mean, it didn't even feel like an Ant-Man movie because they were going for a more serious tone, but it wasn't serious enough to be a dramatic take on an Ant-Man movie. I mean, the movie just dragged on for me, and by the time the third act rolled around, I was just like, when is this going to be over? Because Marvel movies are generally entertaining, I can usually curb my disappointment because of that, but this movie was just boring. And so all I was left with was disappointment. Disappointed because the movie was not good, and disappointed because it didn't even entertain me. I feel really harsh right now, but this lighting is making me feel better. Character? I barely know her. Yeah, there was like no character development in this movie. I mean, if you isolated Quantumania from the rest of the MCU, you wouldn't know anything about these characters. They felt very flat. They had no real arc in this movie. And I will get into the arcs in the spoiler section of this part. The interpersonal conflicts the characters went through felt very shallow. There was a moment when I did think there could have been consequences in the interpersonal relationships, but it just wasn't developed enough. It's really disappointing to not see at least Scott get an arc.
Snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap!
Like, he literally begins and ends the movie in the same place. Now, I know this is supposed to be like a full circle moment, but honestly, to me, it just amplified the fact that, yeah, he didn't change throughout this movie, like, at all. Now, compare that to a character like Tony Stark, who has an arc in literally every single movie he's in. Even in movies where he's not the focus character, you can see him develop. I mean, Mr. Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist literally proposes to his girlfriend Pepper in Spider-Man Homecoming, a movie that is not about Tony Stark. And when in the previous movie Tony was in, it was established that him and Pepper had broken up. That's development in a movie that's not his, and more significant development than Ant-Man had in a movie that was his. Bam! Spoilers. Scott and Cassie. So Scott and Cassie's main conflict in this movie is that she wants to fight injustice and he is turning a blind eye to it. He talks and writes a book about his exploits as an Avenger, but he is effectively retired from the superhero life. Cassie, on the other hand, is literally going to jail in order to fight injustice. I now feel like a second-rate Cass, but, you know, hey, I'm on YouTube doing videos for 20 people. Now, it is implied that the reason Scott is no longer an active superhero is because he wants to protect his time with Cassie. I mean, he was in prison for a lot of her early years, and then during most of her teenage years, he was stuck in the quantum realm. So he never really got to be in her life all that much. So Scott is willing to turn a blind eye to injustice in order to preserve the time left he has with his daughter. That's a strong theme. It was developed horribly. It was just so shallow. They had no deep conversation about it. I mean, he never even talked to Hank or Janet or Hope about it. And they would have been the perfect people to have a conversation about it because they know what it's like to want extra time with someone they love. But it just caused a minor conflict between Scott and Cassie that honestly could have been chalked up to normal parent-teenage conflict. You know, he's overprotective and she's rebellious.
And we won't forget the day we fought for the right to be a little bit naughty.
Like, it's not that deep. It should have been deep, but it's not.
Sick burn.
So Scott's arc in this movie basically went from him being passive to injustice to him actively fighting injustice, which is where he was in his previous movie, Avengers Endgame. It's like he had a reverse arc. We begin the movie with a different Scott to the one we saw in Avengers Endgame, and we end this movie with the same Scott we saw in Avengers Endgame. I'm not saying arcs like that can't be effective or they're not realistic, but they have to be developed properly. This just wasn't effective. It felt very shallow because even though Scott had turned a blind eye to injustice, something that he previously fought, he didn't actually lose anything by being passive. The only thing you could say he lost was Cassie had a little less respect for him, but he didn't lose her. She was still very much at his side, and she didn't excommunicate him. She was just mad at him. That's it. He didn't lose anything. He just felt stagnant. Painfully stagnant. Spoilers. Hank, Janet, and Hope. These three
Were so annoying.
in this movie. Janet kept lying to Hank and Hope about knowing who Kang is and helping him. And the movie and Janet herself was building her up to be this horrible person who was basically a terrorist in some people's eyes. And she literally said that, or some character said that, when literally all she did was help Kang. And she didn't even know he was a bad guy when she was helping him. We see this trope all the frickin' time, and it's so annoying. You know, characters make it out to be such a big deal that a good guy helps a bad guy, even though 99% of the time, it's unknowingly. It's just such an annoying trope and such cheap conflict. And of course, Hank and Hope were upset at Janet for lying, but it was treated so melodramatically, like I am acting right now. The whole good guys lying to each other trope is another one I find kind of insufferable because, again, cheap conflict. Unless it's developed well, but it wasn't here. I mean, now you could argue that it was somewhat developed, not well, somewhat, because when Janet and Kang were having a heart-to-heart, Janet told him that the last thing she said to her daughter Hope before she got stuck in the quantum realm was a lie, that she was coming back home. Seriously? Yeah, it was a lie, but she was a child. What were you supposed to say? Mommy isn't coming home because she's gonna shrink between the atoms and get stuck in the quantum realm for 30 years. It's not that deep. So no, I don't agree that it was a well-developed conflict. The only time Janet's lying and secretiveness could have been interesting was when she asked Scott to give her this quantum ball thingy that I don't know the name of. I forget what it's called. That Kang wants to use to get out of the quantum realm. Now, Scott didn't want to give it to her because Kang basically said, hey, you give me this quantum ball thingy and I will give you Cassie, who at this point he had imprisoned. But because Janet had been lying for most of the movie, the characters don't actually trust her to give the quantum ball thingy back to Scott and save Cassie like she says she's going to. Now, this could have been really interesting because this is a vital moment in their relationships. Do they trust her enough to surrender their bargaining chip to her when she promises that she's going to save Cassie? Really though, it's a Marvel movie. Of course she's going to save Cassie. We all know that Marvel heroes will give up saving the world if it means having to sacrifice one of their own. This movie is a freaking thrift store.
I'm gonna pop some tags, only got $20 in my pocket.
Now the character people care about. Kang was good. Jonathan Majors has made all two variations of Kang interesting and different enough to differentiate between them. They both feel like Kang, and he gives them depth. Like, Kang feels like a deep character, just like Thanos did. Unlike any of the other characters in this movie, Kang is well written, and that's all I can really say without going into spoilers. I'm gonna go into spoilers now. So this variation of Kang was exiled by the other Kangs. I don't remember why from the movie, but on the wiki it said that it's because he was conquering other timelines, which I personally do not think was made clear in the movie. But he was exiled to the quantum realm so he would stop destroying and conquering other timelines. Of course, he wants to escape the quantum realm, but while he's there, he conquers it, and a bunch of people have to run from their homes and live as refugees. Now, this Kang is much darker and more serious than the Kang in Loki. He at the end, the one above all, no. He who remains. He is, however, horribly underpowered. Like, he was built up to be extremely dangerous and powerful. And I know in the comics, Kang isn't exactly, like, powerful in the sense of Captain Marvel or even Thanos, but he's still dangerous and intimidating. Like, he's a big threat. But he just didn't deliver in this movie. So there's a rebellion against him by the refugees, and they are far less powerful than he is. But instead of destroying them, like you would assume the guy who has conquered multiple timelines would do, he only kills, like, a couple of them. Like, he should have went Homelander on them. But no. And of course, his soldiers were idiots and useless, because a bad guy can't have minions who are actually intelligent. But anyways, I actually liked the fight between Kang and Scott at the end, because Kang was beating the crap out of Scott, because he's Kang the Conqueror and Scott is Ant-Man. But then Hope saves him, so whatever. I guess it was a surprise attack, so I guess that's some leeway. But I still think it was way too easy a defeat. I mean, Ant-Man, Kang the Conqueror, come on. Ant-Man and the Wasp should not have been able to defeat a variation of Marvel's next big villain. Are you kidding me? He's Ant-Man, she's the Wasp. They can shrink and grow big, that's it. And they weren't even big when they actually defeated him. They were regular sized. Like, are you kidding me? Just nerf him. Like, what? I mean, even Thor barely won against Thanos in Infinity War, and he's a god. During the battle between the freedom fighters and Kang's army, Hank brought a bunch of ants that were very, very poorly set up to be an intricate part of the final battle because the ants had Kang quaking in his little boots. I like Kang, I like Jonathan Majors, but I don't think this movie set up his threat level well at all. And maybe I am fundamentally misunderstanding something about Kang and how he's going to be the next villain. I don't know, but it just feels like he has nowhere near the threat level that Thanos does. And he should have that same threat level. Because if he's going to be the next big MCU villain, then he needs to actually be the next big MCU villain. You know? Like, I know they established a bunch of other Kangs and it was implied that they're gonna be like this threat, which I totally get that. I think it's sort of that's the threat, like a bunch of the Kangs. But you have to actually have each individual Kang pose a threat. Or maybe I'm just stupid, but I feel like that's pretty obvious. I mean, we already learned about all the Kangs in Loki, so this variant, it was just kind of pathetic at the end. There were no consequences. The characters never lost anything. This movie literally just served to explore the quantum realm and build up Kang as a threat. There was almost no point to have Ant-Man and his daughter and Hank and Janet and Hope in this movie. I mean, this could have been a Kang-centric movie. It didn't have to be an Ant-Man-centric movie. I'm kind of convinced the only reason this was an Ant-Man movie is because Janet, a major Ant-Man character, has probably the strongest connection to the quantum realm than any other character in the MCU. But beyond that, there's no actual reason for this to be an Ant-Man movie. And I don't think that's a good enough reason. I mean, Marvel could have had the Ant-Man characters make cameos or be side characters in a Kang the Conqueror movie. I really think that would have worked better. I mean, Scott didn't even feel like the protagonist, and Hope certainly didn't. She was in the background until the end, really. She felt as pushed to the side as like Hank and Janet. As far as I'm concerned, Cassie was the pro-protagonist and probably Janet was the deuteragonist. Spoilers. During the end fight between Scott and Hope and Kang, the portal that's their way out of the quantum realm closes. This traps Scott and Hope in the quantum realm. I was staring at the screen, hoping, hope, that it would stay closed. That's real consequences. Scott and Hope sacrificed themselves to keep Kang trapped. And that would have helped develop the theme between Scott and Cassie. Throughout the movie, he was turning a blind eye to injustice in order to have more time with his daughter. Because if he's out fighting, then he's putting his life at risk, and then he might lose his time he has with her. But by letting that portal close, by trapping himself, he is giving up that time in order to preserve justice. It would have been a tragic and meaningful sacrifice. But then the portal opened, and my head literally fell. I'm not kidding. I literally went like this. Like, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. I've been sprinkling this throughout the video, so let's see if you can guess. This did not feel like an Ant-Man movie. Beyond it not being very funny and Scott barely being the protagonist, it's not even a heist movie, which is what I loved about the first two Ant-Mans. I mean, they were small scale, they were self-contained. Yes, they were part of the larger universe, but they still felt like their own thing. They didn't have world-ending stakes. And them being heist movies differentiated them from other Marvel movies. Which is good because even with 700 plus characters, Marvel's in need of a little bit of variety. So I was already kind of disappointed going into this movie, because I was like 95% sure that it wasn't going to be a heist movie. It was probably going to be another big states MCU fight fest. I was right. Spoilers. There is a heist in this movie, but it's just kind of shoved in there like an afterthought. Remember that quantum ball thingy I mentioned earlier? Yeah, well that had been blown up to be like this giant core thing. I really don't know how to describe it, but it was just like this giant massive like energy and stuff. And basically Scott had to like go into it to get to the core and basically take the core out of it to make it small again. It was kind of confusing, but I didn't mind the heist itself. It was fun to watch because they did this like probability Schrodinger's box thingamabob where there's like 1,000 or an infinite number of Scotts, and they were all united by their love of Cassie. And then with a little bit of help from Hope, they did steal back the core, and everything was fine and dandy. It was fine, but it just felt really shoved in there. It was kind of like the writers remembered around the second act of the movie that, oh yeah, this is an Ant-Man movie, and our main character is an ex-con, and maybe we should actually utilize that. They just seemed to put no effort into making this feel like an Ant-Man movie. Which sucks because while I know Ant-Man isn't one of the most popular movies or characters in the MCU, I really liked the first two movies. I thought they were a lot of fun. I've rewatched the first one several times. Spoilers! A couple other things I didn't like. The rebellion of the Quantum People Freedom Fighters versus Kang. Because it wasn't the focal part of the movie, it felt underdeveloped and unneeded. I mean, I get why it was there to sort of build up Kang as this bad guy, but they should have put way more effort into it, which honestly is kind of just the general criticism of the MCU currently. This movie should and could have and should have just been Kang versus the Freedom Fighters, and built up one of the Quantum Freedom Fighters people as a new hero, and had the Ant-Man characters as side characters or cameos or something. It just felt very boring. And that's all I really think about it. Darren Cross as MODOK sucked. I honestly don't know much about the comics at all. But I didn't find him good in this movie at all, and I did not like him as MODOK. And it's stupid because I actually liked him in the first Ant-Man. I mean, he was obviously an Obadiah Stane ripoff, but he was fine, he was entertaining, he was realistic, he wasn't too over the top, he was just like really, really greedy. But him as MODOK is a big joke. Like, I'm sorry, I mean, I know MODOK is supposed to be a big joke in the comics, so maybe I just don't like MODOK in general. That's actually probably it, honestly. Conclusion. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania gave me hope for Kang as a villain, but not hope for the MCU's quality. I thought Wakanda Forever was flawed, but still good. But Quantumania was just flawed. I mean, not a good way to start Phase 5. And worse, it was boring. It was not funny, but I couldn't take it seriously as a drama. It was an Ant-Man and the Wasp movie in name alone. And honestly, that's all the MCU is these days. A big name slapped onto mediocrity that is desperately trying to recapture the magic of the past. Now I'm depressed. I'm done ranting now. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Another reminder, this is all my opinion. I am not an expert on anything, but I am a writer, so I would like to think that I am not completely unknowledgeable, and I'm also definitely correct in every single thing I say, so keep that in mind. Now for some self-promo. I wrote some books, a literary anthology full of poems and rants and different kind of musings about growing up, a fantasy trilogy, it's high fantasy, think Tolkien, but written by a teenager, and then we have a standalone fantasy that's set in the same world as the trilogy, but written by an older teenager, so it'll be a little bit better. Anyway, super proud of them, so if you want to support me, there is a link to the Amazon page in the description below. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.